the impact of shared reading is, well, we'll get a taste of it hopefully today and through this discussion. But really, shared reading it helps us to build connections between people from different backgrounds, all different walks of life, and helps us think differently and understand different experiences and perspectives. People often tell us that it helps with them understanding their inner life, their mental health, troubles of the soul, and quite often through reading a text and reading a story, we'll recognise something, maybe a moment, maybe a feeling, maybe an emotion, and realise that, oh, I never knew that anybody felt that except me.
So Mindwalk Yoga is, I'm the founder. It's a social enterprise and a virtual wellbeing studio. It's all about kind of using yoga as a tool for mental wellness. The principles is like kind of taking your mind for a walk. And if it feels okay to come away from the back of your chair for a moment, just to kind of lengthen out your spine and maybe just rest your hands in your lap if that feels okay. And just becoming aware of the ground beneath you.
Before I leave, I catch my reflection, a masked stranger I barely recognise. Upon further inspection, there's more than one reflection, faces of hope, and some that agonise. Different versions of me in this house of mirrors, I and you and me. Many paths leading to the same destination, the goal of unity. Some of us will march today and form a lasting bond. Others will write and petition, all equal ways to respond. Because we realise there's no monopoly when it comes to this game of compassion. The fight for our lives is not just a moment, a trend or fleeting fashion. Mask pressed to nose and lips, I feel I can't breathe. New family members chant the same and want to believe that there can be a different world where a boy or a girl or a binary don't exist, where the colour of your skin and your value within make you a human with the right to persist, that we deserve to live and love and breathe and give others the same, so we don't lose our families, bury our brothers with history repeating their name. Looking at you all, I acknowledge your existence, your pilgrim journey in this sacred resistance. What a beautiful surprise to see this mirror of faces. These people within me even have wrinkles and come from different races. United we stand and continue this walk. We face those uncomfortable truths of having to have the talk. And so we will not stop. We will follow the paths and the invitation of this community. Queen Latifah spelt it out. Malcolm X walked it out. And the chorus we speak of is unity.
So if I was to consider, what links us all of us, as Black and brown people, we're 9 times more likely to be stopped and searched than our white counterparts. Research indicates that these experiences can impact negatively on the mental and emotional health and well-being of victims of stop and search. And what it does is it leads into cases of racial trauma, prompting some to see their environments as threatening, maybe stress-inducing. But what I wanted to do first and foremost, sort of learning from last night, just briefly highlight the aspect of the law behind stop and search. It comes under Section 60 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act 1994, which allows a police officer to stop and search a person without suspicion. It's different from the ordinary stop and search because it means police don't need to have reasonable grounds to stop and search you. Now, I don't really want today to be about stats, but it is important to paint a current picture of life as, let's say, a Black or brown person in London at the hands of the police. Now, bear in mind, I said earlier, people, Black people are 9 times more likely to be stopped and searched by police than white people. So these statistics, only a couple, 4% of stop and search under Section 60 results in an arrest, 1% results in arrest for weapons. And it's seen as a blunt, ineffective tool, very low arrest rates. And, again, leaning on last night's discussion, which was really good, and they spoke about it making it harder for police to tackle crime as communities lose faith, trust, confidence in policing, with witnesses hesitant to come forward and cooperate. So that's where we are right now.
First of all, I am very much like you are very happy to be here, Paul. I'm here because you asked me to come. I remember playing with you at Charlton as a young boy. When you were a young boy, I wasn't. And of course, having been playing football for many times and seeing racial bias in football and in the community and society at large. Obviously, when we were younger, these discussions weren't able to be had, and now they are. So I'm glad to be part of the discussion. I would like to widen the discussion to focus a lot on what goes on in the inner cities rather than what goes on in the elite aspects of Black life, meaning football and Oscars and actors not being given parts and talking about knife crime. And of course, stop and search is a huge issue, particularly with the new report that Dr. Tony Stewart has brought out, which of course I think has set us back many years. And I think that we need more discussions like this rather than how terrible it is in Hungary and how terrible it is, racism is in football when you go to Montenegro.
I must admit, in terms of the stop and search at that point, I'm talking about the 90s now, right? When I was younger, 90s, early 2000s, it was just so commonplace to be stopped as young people. I'm not talking about adults now. I'm talking about 15, 16, 17, young people. It's so common for us to be stopped and searched and treated in a certain way that it just became common practice. It became common practice that we would be treated like this to varying extents, depending on where we geographically lived within our journeys to school and around the area. But actually, it wasn't like I stopped being angry, but it just became part of the reality of what we would go through. And there's something very sad about that, because when it becomes an expectation that you will be treated in a particular kind of way, that impacts you in every kind of way.
Paul, you remember a keeper, you might do, a guy called Lawrence Batty, who was at Fulham. And Lawrence's father wrote Total Eclipse of the Heart. And he used to live on by the Thames. And his dad had this big left-hand drive BMW. It was blue.
I remember it.
Remember it? And we were driving down to Craven Cottage, and Lawrence was driving left-hand drive, and I was in the passenger seat, and we got pulled over by the police. And I weren't too bothered about it. But Lawrence had a big red face, and when he got nervous, his face would go red, and I could see he was going red and getting really upset. And we got out of the car, and he said, "Is this your car?" I went, yes, it's my dad's car. He's got documents, and he had the documents. He showed him the documents, and he said, "Oh, absolutely fine." Lawrence said, "Excuse me, officer, why have you stopped us?" And he said, "Look, mate, look, you've got to be honest. It looks a bit dodgy, a white and a black man in a left-hand drive BMW. It does look a bit dodgy." And Lawrence absolutely lost his head, and he went ballistic. And Lawrence was about 6'4", big guy, and I had to hold him up against the wall while apologising to the officer. And the officer went, "You better just control him, else you're going to be in big trouble." And while I was holding him, I'm thinking, it's all right for you to lose your head, Lawrence, but if anything goes down, it's me who's going to get put in jail. You'll be all right. Your dad will come and get you, but I will be the one in trouble. And he couldn't believe it. He didn't understand it. And John is absolutely right about conditioning. He was talking about conditioning the police, and people think that you're guilty. But when I see, coming back to your question about when I see someone being stopped and searched, it takes me back to how I've been conditioned, Paul, and how it's affected me. I've been conditioned to behave in a certain way when the police are around. I was taught that by my dad, I was taught that by my mum, and to make sure that my body language was a certain way to make sure that I didn't get in trouble. And that is something that Lawrence Batty never understood or never would understand. And it's not his fault because he's not black. And until you've been through that, until you understand that, when I drive past, and I do a lot of driving, and every time I see someone being stopped by the police, it seems to be black, I just feel, wow, those kids are being conditioned in an unbelievably negative way, And if I was them living where they are, what effect would that have on me and my life? And it'd have an extremely negative effect when people look at you without knowing you and they think you're guilty of something.
Why do I think it's important to know who you are? You know, sometimes we can say it's about being self-aware. So I'm just going to read, self-awareness is important for many reasons. It can improve your judgment and help identify opportunities for growth and personal development. But what it also does, it builds self-esteem and confidence. If you don't know who you are, then, you know, your self-esteem is not as great as it can be, and you're already leaving your house with lower confidence.
But me as a yogi, my specific goal today is to give you 5 tools specifically that will allow you to know the way your body responds, the way your body might respond in certain interactions with the police. A lot of times these interactions are intense, and to know really just your on a physiological on a physiological level how you can use parts of your body, such as your physical body, such as your breath control, and you know, hopefully that'll influence your thoughts and behaviors.